Hello and welcome to this Python tutorial. In the two previous tutorials, we did our two first steps of making a machine learning model. The first step was to pre-process the data to make it ready to build our machine learning model, that is our simple linear regression model. And actually the second step was to create this model. What we did is we imported the linear regression class from the linear model library. Then we created an object of this class, which is the simple linear regressor itself. And then since any class contains methods, that is tools or functions, we used one of these methods, which is the fit method, which fitted our simple linear regressor object to the training set. And the fact that we fit it to the training set, what does that mean? That means that our simple linear regressor learned the correlations of the training set, that is, learned the correlations between the number of years of experience and the salary, to learn how it can predict the salaries based on the experience. And now that the simple linear regression, that is the machine itself, learned these correlations, we can see how it will predict some new observations, which will be the test set observations. And that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. We're going to see how our simple linear regression machine learned the correlations in a training set to see how it can predict the test set observations, which are new observations because indeed our simple linear regression model didn't learn anything from the test set. So let's see how it can predict new observations, and to do this we will create a vector of predicted values. That is, we will create a vector that will contain the predictions of the test set salaries, and we will put all these predicted salaries into a single vector that we will call ypred. So ypred, and this is going to be the same for all machine learning models that we will create, ypred is going to be the vector of predictions of the dependent variable. And in this particular example for simple linear regression, since the dependent variable is the salary, then that means that this vector will contain the predicted salaries for all the observations of our test set. So now let's create this vector of predictions. So here we'll add equal. And now we will take our regressor that we created and trained on the training set. And again, we're going to use a method of the linear regression class. But this time it's not going to be the fit method, it's going to be the predict method. And the predict method, as you can guess, is a method that will make the predictions of the salaries of some observations. And therefore we will need to specify which observations we want to make the predictions. And so we will need to specify that we want to make the predictions of the test set. And so in this predict function, we will input the test set, but you will see. So as always, when we want to use a method, we add a little dot here, and then we can choose the method here, as you can see. So before we use the fit method, and this time we're using the predict method. So I just pressed enter, and now we can input some parameter. So if we press Command I to inspect the predict method, we get this, and you can see that in the parameters it says that we need to input only one parameter, and that this parameter is x, and x is of course our matrix of features of new observations, and therefore it's going to be x test. And let's select this line because now it's ready. Our vector of predictions is ready to be built. Execute. And now we can see our ypred vector that actually appeared in the variables in Variable Explorer. So let's have a look. Here is ypred. And let's also open ytest to compare. Alright, so now what's very important to understand is the distinction between ytest and ypred. So it's very simple. Ytest is the real salaries of your 10 observations in a test set. That's the salaries those 10 employees here really have in the company. And then, those salaries here in the ypred vector are the predicted salaries. So that's the salaries of these 10 employees predicted by our simple linear regression model. So in short, ytest contains the real salaries and ypred contains the predicted salaries. So now what's interesting to do is to compare the real salaries to the predicted salaries. So for example, let's take the first observation. So this real salary here and this predicted salary here correspond to the same employee. And we can see that this particular employee indexed by 0 has a $37,000 salary, and that's his real salary. and our model predicted that this employee has a $40,000 salary. So the predicted salary is not too far from the real salary, and that actually makes a good prediction. We can have less good prediction. For example, if we look at the 7th employee here, well, its real salary is $55,000, and our model predicted that this employee has a $64,000 salary. So it overestimated the salary. And you'll understand why it did that after when we look at the graphic results. You'll perfectly understand why, because you'll see that the simple linear regression is actually a straight line that is trying to be the closest as possible to the real observation points. So you will see why it sometimes makes some predictions that are far from the reality. But then it can also make some great predictions, and that's the case for the last one, because the last employee of the test set has a $101,000 salary, and our model predicted that this same employee has $100,000, well, almost $101,000 salary. So that's a very accurate prediction. Okay, so let's click OK now. That's the idea about the vector of predictions that we create here. And in the next tutorial, all this will get a lot more clear, because we will visualize the result. We will visualize what's happening between, the truth and the predictions. We will build a plot where we'll have our true observation points. That means our employee with their real salaries. And then we will plot a straight fitting line that is going to be the simple linear regression line. And on this line will actually be the predictions of our model for each of the employee. So I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial to make this plot. Until then, enjoy machine learning!